Greetings everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, My Hero Academia, the final season.
My Hero Academia, the final season, special episode, more. This came out like 2 months ago, but we were busy in catch-up mode and didn't really have time to do this or slot it anywhere. So, hey, now that we're fully caught up and now that we're looking for stuff to put in time slots, hey, here's MHA, this episode. They did say that they were potentially doing like an Airy special thing, so if that gets dubbed, we'll probably do that just for the hell of it. But yes, this was the more epilogue episode that was promised by the author, stuff like that after the end of the series left all kinds of questions, and the author got accosted online and was like, okay, hold on, let me finish what I was going to do and give me a second. So, you know, they answered a couple more questions from that epilogue that was written in this episode as well. So that's cool. There's nothing to really speculate on. We're not in full speculation mode. This is just kind of going to be a fun watch. We'll react to it, do the usual thing, and talk about it, and talk about the area stuff afterwards, and then, just see if this wrapped up everything, if we have any extra, questions that potentially we wanted answered that didn't get answered, that kind of thing. But by the end of this show proper, a lot of the stuff was wrapped up. There are a couple things here, like certain questions answered for certain things, so we'll just have to see if it comes out here. But yeah.
And really the only big open plot thread remaining by the end of the series is just the Quirk Singularity. Quirk Singularity.
Right.
Which, from what the freaking author has said, if he does decide to do a sequel series, it's going to be the focus of it.
Right. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but for now, we're just going to push some buttons and watch the episode. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the time reaction, and people on YouTube and beyond, we'll see you on the other side for the discussion and review. And all the new links are down there in the description. Check them out, whatnot, if you want. So, yeah, so here goes something. Well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. I'd say this episode did pretty much everything that it needed to do. I'll have to sit here as we discuss it and think about it a little bit more, because I just went on a rant about how the internet was wrong again and pressing misinformation at the end of the reaction, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it here again, because there's a couple other things to mention when it comes to the relationship part, because let's be real, the vast majority of people wanted Deku and Ochako's relationship to be confirmed, and that's what the author did for this sequence. That little hand grab thing is as best as you're going to get. This is a shonen, you guys. There's a reason why people and manga authors will write a shonen as opposed to, like a romance, because they're not good at it. You know what I mean? They're going to stay in their wheelhouse. Even putting in moderate relationship stuff is I remember the Naruto author talking about that back in the day when he did the Naruto and Hinata stuff at the end of Shippuden and had the wedding and all that stuff. He was losing his mind, asking wedding planners and stuff I guess I have to do this, so help me do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, more often than not, if there's any sort of confirmation of any sort of romantic anything in shonen, it usually is just the whole thing with the mushroom girl and the shadow guy, where it's just oh yeah, by the way, they ended up together.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that. It shows them together or whatever. It's a wedding photo or something, whatever it is. But the rest of this was fine. It was nice to see all their job work stuff, all of their current hero ratings and stuff like that. Ida points out later in the episode that the rankings are a little bit more just kind of loose and bracketed these days. It's not just 1 to 100. Even Mineta being 108 isn't really that bad, but there's still probably hundreds if not thousands of heroes, so 108 is still a pretty big deal. Though to be fair, a guy like Mineta is probably riding off the fact that he was part of 1A, you know what I mean, and fought in the final confrontation. But still, it's still being top, even whatever. We saw plenty of those other heroes that were even unranked and stuff like that are important. You know what I mean? That people like Majestic, he was completely unranked and he was a pretty big deal apparently. You know what I mean? So
yeah, the rankings apparently got reworked to where before the only thing that mattered was popularity.
Yeah.
It was who was the most popular, and the way you got popular was by doing jobs as a hero. But yeah, now things like popularity, your actual number of completed assignments as a hero, teaching, any sort of philanthropic work, like freaking running charities, stuff like that. All of that contributes to your ranking now, which is a big part of why Tentacle is now number 9, apparently.
Yeah. The literal face of heteromorphs at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because even though he is a relatively weak hero, even compared to the rest of 1A, he's still like basically became the face of heteromorphs. So he's probably running basically all of the charity and heteromorph rights organization shenanigans and everything like that, and getting a huge boost to both his popularity and his philanthropic scores on his ranking.
Yeah. So, as we can see, Lemillion has really packed on the bulk in certain places, especially. We all know what I'm talking about. His hair. Thought I was going somewhere else with that, didn't you? You guys need to get your minds out of the peach. But yeah, it's unsurprising. We talked about like the whole series when we've done MHA since we started doing it for the channel, that Lemillion was going to end up being the number 1 hero. And supplanting him would be a massive endeavor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like ever since he was introduced, like Night Eye even mentioned that like with All Might out of the picture, Lemillion is capable of being the number 1 hero, even factoring in all of the current people that were in there, like Genist at his peak, friggin' Endeavor, all of them. So he was saying that like Lemillion, even at that point, would have still probably qualified as the number 1 hero.
Yep.
Because of his personality and just how strong he was at the time.
Right. And as you guys can see here, he really leveled up his Peach attack there to do this. So everybody has new and exciting powers and abilities to use their quirk. So that's one way to use it. I mean, he is listed as the comedy hero, so, you know, this is probably the major part of his work, is doing stuff like this with children and, you know, connecting with the youth and whatnot, on top of being able to be probably, you know, very good in the field, obviously. But, you know. Yeah,
he's a very strong hero, but once again, it's the biggest part of his thing has always been his popularity.
Yeah. Hilarious that I did see this, like this kid is wearing the Boku shirt. It's kind of like when in Dragon Ball where somebody's like wearing like the Tenkaichi Budokai shirts and stuff like that. Or that one time Krillin just wears that shirt that says tacos. That's probably been one of the weirdest things in all of anime to me, is Krillin's shirt that just says tacos. Like, I've seen plenty of, you know, like how freaking Shoto's brother wears like the front back shirt, that kind of stuff. You see a lot of weird stuff on shirts, you know, just say, you know, whatever.
Saitama's Opie shirt.
Yeah, his Opie shirt or stuff, but just a shirt that just tacos, and he wears it multiple times in one of the super arcs. It's crazy. But it's always funny when the authors squeaks in stuff like references like that to the title in on like shirts and hats and stuff like that. It's kind of a good thing. But either way, like all this stuff was fine. Basically everything you know expected to get out of this. You know, the Himiko Toga stuff, we talked about it during the reaction with, you know, her quirk factor is never going to go away. That was a full body blood transfusion. And we already saw with things like, obviously, you know, One for All, freaking New Order, that kind of stuff. Other quirk factors that have just persisted because of the power of the soul, basically. And that's, you know, like Ochako says, it's like her blood is probably still a part of her. It's, you know, it's not just, eventually blood cycles out through various means, but this is not that kind of biological thing. You know what I mean?
Well, it's one of those things where, like, also, like, if you put the wrong blood type into a person, it causes an elastic impact on them. Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, even if the blood is gone, the quirk factor probably still lingers.
Yeah.
And as we've seen multiple times, it's been an established thing that parts of your personality and stuff like that are embedded into your quirk factor. So if your quirk factor ever transfers, then a remnant of your personality remains in the person.
Yep. So I think that was handled very well. I don't know what's going on with Bakugo's backseat. Like, I've never seen a sports car backseat that looks like this. You could argue that he was driving fast, but I don't know what this was supposed to be.
The whole joke is that it's basically like a giant freaking beanbag chair for the back seat.
Right. But still, it is still pretty hilarious how they handle this entire situation. You know, all the stuff with just how everybody's, you know, future has progressed in the last like 8 years or whatever the time skip was. So all the stuff with Bakugo being, once again, like I think a lot of people over the course of the series kind of like underestimate Bakugo's just general competence and knowledge of just random everyday stuff. Like, remember how he was like a pro in the kitchen because of his mom? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And like, even in this episode when they were talking about like Shoto was talking about taking like his like pottery class and stuff like that, he knew the specific technique. You know what I mean? Just offhand, like it was nothing.
Yeah, Bakugo's always been like hyper competent at anything he's interested in. The problem is just that fuck everything he's not interested in.
Pretty much.
Also, anyone who tries to talk to him can fuck off.
Yeah, pretty much. Because as you guys can see, he debuted at number 4 because, you know, he took down, you know, All For One, but at the end there. But he is currently number 15. But that's still pretty good for somebody as aggressive as him. You know what I mean? So it's just yeah, all that was great. You know, we got all the Deku stuff and whatnot. Shoto falling victim to the Shonen Dad haircut. That's something that I saw a lot of people talking about in the what do you call it? The just right after this came out, like, oh, the big thing was Naruto fell prey to it, then Shoto, and people were begging they were begging Oda, the One Piece author, if you ever do a super time skip for Luffy, because once again, Luffy's like 18, he's not that old, obviously. If ever we get like adult Luffy, don't give him Shonen Dad haircut.
I mean, at least he doesn't have dead mom haircut.
Yeah, he doesn't have dead mom haircut, so none of them really had that. But once again, they're like in their, you know, they're like 24. You know what I mean? It's not like they're super old, so.
Yeah, there's like an 8-ish year time skip, and most of them were like 18 and 18 by the time the series ended, so they're like in their mid to late 20s.
Right. Here's something that people might not understand. Ridley Hero Pinky. This author really likes references to stuff like Star Wars. Like, there were plenty of Star Wars references in the cityscape of this.
Yeah, there's tons of Star Wars references, but yeah, he really likes Western media.
Yeah, and in case anybody forgot, she wanted to be known as Alien Queen, and Midnight rejected it. So this is the shout out to the Alien franchise once again, is her being known as the Ridley Hero.
Yeah, which most people would know, but not everyone, you know, watches Alien. Obviously, Ridley Scott is the main character.
Yeah, so after Ridley Scott, the main character of the Alien franchise. So yeah, that's why. In case anybody's like, what the hell does that mean? Ridley Scott, the protagonist of Alien, just yeah, that was the connection, because they made it pretty obvious when Midnight was like that terrible creature, and they showed like the alien. You know what I mean? So yeah, those kind of references were there.
Yeah, Ridley Scott was the filmmaker. Ridley Scott was the filmmaker. What the frick was the name of Ripley? Not Ridley. Ridley Scott was the filmmaker of Alien. Ripley. Yeah. Ripley is. What the fuck was her first name? Ripley was her last name. What was the fuck was her first name?
Yeah, I've never been super into Alien, so I don't know. But yeah, I know it was either the main character or the author of the Alien. So yeah, it's the author, but still.
Ellen Ripley was the name. Was the main character. But yeah, no, Ridley Scott was the
creator,
director.
Yeah, the director
for Alien.
Yeah, that's what it was. I knew it was either the character or the director. I just couldn't remember which one. Sounds right. But that it's from the Alien franchise, regardless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So either way, this whole sequence was nice. You know, just getting all this kind of stuff. I think Tsukiyomi had the best moment, honestly, with him losing his mind. That was a fabulous read when he was just like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. You know what I mean?
I'm not supposed to be fabulous. I'm supposed to be the darkness.
Yeah. So him crashing out over that was absolutely fantastic. So, you know, he's probably wearing those rings in protest. But let's not forget who he's working with. He's working with Hawks. So the whole premise of that was him recounting, taking Hawks' ideology to heart and like hoping one day that heroes have too much time on their hands and aren't needed. But then it was just complete left turn into I'm the darkness. So the comedy landed perfectly right there.
Yeah, he is still the edgelord of the group.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's taken on freaking Hawks' ideology of wanting to dissolve heroes as a thing, but knowing that it's obviously they're not there yet.
Right. Okay, so the last thing to mention here about all of this is obviously what a lot of people wanted was the romance, which, again, it's a shonen, so once again, like I mentioned with the Naruto stuff, it's not like usually these kinds of authors' forte, and they just kind of like vaguely throw it in there. And this was one of the first things. Once again, at the beginning, this was one of the things that, like, when Class B was first shown in like those mock battles and stuff like that, when we first get introduced to these two, it was pretty obvious that this guy had a crush on her. So them becoming together, he finally grew a pair and asked her out, which Kaminari won't do with Kyoka for whatever reason. He just set up shop next to her and hopes at some point that a relationship will happen by osmosis. I just we
gotta almost immediately establish that the dark guy liked the frickin' the shroom girl. We never actually got anything from her side of things, but yeah. Clearly something was there because they ended up together.
Right. So we talked about this a little bit at the end of the reaction, and there's a couple things. So you could argue 4 relationships out of 1A, but there were only like really 2 that like vaguely existed. Deku and Ochako, obviously. Kaminari and Kyoka here are the ones that kind of like had something, you know what I mean? There were multiple instances of them showing some sort of feelings for each other multiple times. So there was that. And then the 2 at the bottom that are like super vague were Shoto and Momo, because they were placed together a lot. And if there were ever 2 that were going to get together in 1A, those 2 paired up very well character type wise. You know what I mean? And then, Kirishima.
If either of them were going to get with someone, in 1A, it'd be the other one.
Yeah. And then Kirishima and Mina. So, and once again, that was just kind of the childhood friend route. You know what I mean? And that is what it is. A lot of people.
Once again, they were childhood friends. They were like each other's big inspiration to become a hero. But that was largely where it was left off at. It's just, they get along really well. They've known each other for a long time. They haven't shown any real romantic interest in each other. But oftentimes, especially in anime, childhood friends who've known each other for a long time typically do still end up together.
Right. And I saw after this first aired, a couple things. This was a big deal for 2 different reasons. Everybody shipped them together because of this sequence right here, because they were, doing that same, brand new car dance and whatever. They've always been vaguely similar like that, so that's not anything new. But people couldn't cope with Mina's thickness.
Yeah, once again, she's never really been chubby, but she's always had a fuller figure than most of the other characters.
Right, and that was helped by obviously her skin-tight hero attire. No kidding, right? Who would have guessed? But a lot of people read too much into that. But could these 2 be together? Absolutely. I'm not dissuading any of these ships that I just talked about. Now, something that I did want to bring up for the ship purpose was right here, and I landed on it. Fantastic. This still showed up, and so many people were putting out there, oh, this proves that Momo and Shoto are together because she's giving him money. They're all giving him money here because he went and paid the bill before he went after the criminals. So props to that one. That was a total Shoto move of everybody's running out to deal with the hero work, and they missed an opportunity for just even 5 seconds of him paying the bill and saying, sorry, we're running out. We got to do hero work. Here's my credit card or whatever. And then he leaves. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is not the girlfriend giving the boyfriend money. This is all of them paying him back because he was the guest of honor for becoming the number 2 hero, and he wasn't supposed to pay. So they're like, well, no, screw that. We're going to reimburse you. This is not girlfriend giving boyfriend payment. And there were so many threads about this, and it was insane. The amount of, because I looked at this and I was like, okay, until I watch it, I will reserve judgment. Because once again, I'm not shitting on anybody's Momo Shoto ship. It makes sense. It's fine. But this is factually incorrect.
Be a thing.
Yeah, it can absolutely be a thing.
And if we've never gotten any actual confirmation to it.
Right. So, and if the author does a sequel series and it's confirmed or whatever and has a chance, fine, whatever. I'm not saying that it's not possible. It makes sense. It's fine. But from the context of what's happening here, no, she's just giving him money to pay him back for what he paid for the dinner. This has nothing to do with boyfriend-girlfriend stuff. So...
Yeah, I mean, once again, Kyoko's literally right there also having just gave him money.
Yeah, they both have their wallets open. So is he with both of them? Do you want to send that one? Is both of his girlfriends paying for the dinner now? Is that what this is now? Is Kaminari in the cuck chair? Is that what we need to ship here? Is that what this is? You know what I mean? Because just the misinformation, just once again, you can have your headcanons. I don't care. You can have your headcanons until the canon material proves you otherwise. This isn't proving anybody otherwise. You could still have your headcanon on every relationship we just talked about. Totally fine. I don't care. But when you're putting out there that this was a confirmation of the relationship, it's not, because of the fact of the rest of the scene was him saying that he just paid for dinner and everybody got pissed at him for saying, no, we were going to pay for you. It'd be one thing if he didn't say that and she just like silently went over there and they showed this, then maybe there'd be something there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if it was just her giving him money, then that likely could have been a potential indicator that they were in a relationship, because once again, we know the whole big part of Momo's thing is she's from an extremely wealthy family, and that is literally one of the ways she knows to show affection is to give money to people. Like, money has been a major part of her character throughout the whole series.
Do I need to remind everybody that in Secret Santa, Ida was her Secret Santa, and it was just like a pile of gold bars?
Yeah.
It was probably like at least like $80, $90, $100,000 worth of gold converted to, gold in our time right now, that kind of thing. A ton of money. Okay. So, and to her, it was probably just a throwaway like allowance thing, but still. It's just,
I mean, not only is she from a ridiculously wealthy family, but once again, her quirk literally could break the economy. That's one of the other things that was brought up, is the fact that she has a very warped sense of material sense because of her being from a ridiculously wealthy family and her literally being able to just create whatever the hell she wants, whenever she wants it.
Right. And another established thing for a character. So once again, so much misinformation about this. It drove me nuts now that I saw the sequence. It's like, no, there's so many threads about it. I talked about it at the end of the reaction. It was out of control. You know what I mean? So that kind of misinformation is just insane. So once again, tell me you didn't watch the show. Well, tell me you watched the show. You didn't. So just watch the sequences and pay attention. So not reading into anything. It was right there. So there's your misinformation debunked. Now, the rest of it with Toga and all the stuff with Deku and Ochako, this is as good as it's going to get you guys for this. You know what I mean? They alluded to it the whole episode that both of them had the life that they exactly wanted. Everything was going exactly the way they wanted. They had everything they wanted, but what more could they possibly ask for? And then the group with Ochako at the beginning of the episode kind of like points that out to her, like, don't you have free time? What about like personal stuff or whatever? And then the Himiko stuff shows up. And then with Bakugo, of all people, being super real and based out of everybody, that's one of his things. Just pointing out that we had this with ReZero, and a lot of people giving like 10 out of 10s to the last 3 episodes of the first part of ReZero here was, if everybody's special to you, then nobody's special to you. You know what I mean? If everything's a 10 out of 10, nothing's a 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? So that was all handled very well, and I like this. But this is as good as it's gonna get. If you guys expected like a freaking romance anime kiss sequence, you weren't gonna get that. Yeah, this was totally on point for these characters, and once again, this is like them basically like agreeing to date. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this isn't like the actual start of them dating, but this is more of them. This is literally just them agreeing. Okay, yeah, we're gonna make time to actually start seeing each other, kind of a thing.
Right.
Not full on like romantic dating yet, but it's clearly showing that's going to lead to that.
Yeah. That's totally fine.
So as it stands, really the only two actual confirmed relationships at this point is Bakugo Deku. Not Bakugo Deku, Deku Ochako. And then freaking the Class B pair.
Yeah. And
there's plenty of other implied ones and potential ones, but none of them are confirmed.
Yeah, like Tetsu and the other girl from B that had the
class rep.
Yeah, the class rep girl. Forget her name. I know Ramiris. That's the VA for her. She also did her, but same VA. But yeah,
Kendo.
Yeah, Kendo. Kendo was her name. But yeah, I think this wrapped up pretty much everything that you like to see. Since they're doing the Eri short, we'll probably see more of Aizawa in that. I know Aizawa's in Vigilantes, and I'm still kind of on the fence of watching that as it stands right now while we catch up with stuff. Maybe we'll watch it on our own time and like talk about it kind of deal. I know Aizawa's in that a reasonable amount. But yeah, if there's like an Eri thing, we'll probably get a little bit more Aizawa there. He was mentioned in this episode. Two things that are worth mentioning here that I'm kind of surprised by. Zero All Might at all. None of the like the major, like we had Hawks was the most major like older character that we saw in this episode. Yeah, we saw Genist and Mirko and stuff like that in the rankings, but no Endeavor, no Todoroki family, like anything, even though they had their wrap-up thing, like not even like a mention of Endeavor, what's going on with him, even for like a split second. No All Might, at all. You know what I mean? It's not like All Might, is gone. You know what I mean? I know he was there in the post time skip stuff, so he's still around. It's not like he was super old. At that point, he's like mid-60s. But it's no All Might at all was kind of weird to me. And the fact that the author has come out and stated that Deku's dad is alive and well and just working overseas during the original part of the series, like before the time skip. So it's like that was one of the weirder things that came out of like the post stuff, was like, so I know this all happened in under a year with everything that happened with Deku and the final war and all that stuff, but at a certain point you find out your son, who is quirkless, has a quirk and is doing all this stuff and you still don't come home. That one is
I still feel like the author just kind of lost. He kept trying too many things with Deku and not committing to any of them.
Yeah,
like I still feel like he was definitely intending to do the whole Deku had a quirk the whole time thing, but decided not to.
Yeah, there are a lot of threads
And
there that just kind of like remained flailing when it came to like Deku's family and backstory and stuff like that. Because we talked about like the bone thing that the doctor mentions and stuff like that earlier in the series and whatnot.
And the fact that his doctor is specifically the doctor.
Yeah, the doctor.
And and it's confirmed later on that he was actively like abducting and experimenting on the kids that he was working on.
Right. So
but then there was also like all the different random things that would come up about like the potential for who Deku's dad was, and like the biggest theory that kind of made the most sense actually was that he was a illegitimate child of Endeavor.
Right.
Because like one of the only bits of information we get like hard confirmed about his dad is that his dad's quirk is fire powers.
Right.
That his dad could breathe fires. That's the one descriptor that the friggin' mom ever mentions about him.
Yeah. But that timeline probably wouldn't, add up, because Endeavor's like the same age as freaking, Midoriya's mother. So it's just,
Well, him being an illegitimate child of Endeavor would still be fine in the timeline because he's the same age as Shoto.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying. I thought
It
you
would've
meant I thought you meant like Deku's dad was an illegitimate child of Endeavor.
No, that Deku's dad was Endeavor was the
Yeah.
theory for a while there.
Right,
That
yeah.
Deku was an illegitimate child of Endeavor, and that like his mom was basically just forced to shut up about it and not actually never mention that it was Endeavor.
Right. So yeah, there are a couple things there that were kind of weird, but you know, you can't fit everything into an epilogue like this, especially when it was kind of like a forced epilogue, that kind of thing. But once again, the stuff about Eri apparently is coming out here fairly soon. So I think they said it was going to be like a short series, so like 2 or 3 episodes, something like that. I'd have to go back and confirm that. If that does get a dub, we'll check it out and do it.
Yeah, and that you're mentioning Aizawa potentially being in that. And yeah, there's would definitely see at least some Aizawa in that if we're going to do an Eri focused anything, because one of the established things, the whole thing is that she gets like adopted by what's his face, the bratty kid with the water powers.
Yeah.
His mom, the aunt or whatever. Yeah, his aunt from the Wild Wild Pussycats.
Yeah.
Adopts him, and they become like adoptive siblings. And then Aizawa ends up acting as basically like her foster father.
Yeah. So yeah, if that comes and gets dubbed, we'll check that out and do that. It's kind of like a bonus thing for whatever. But yeah, it was nice to get this done. When we had time, we caught up with everything that we needed to, and now we're just kind of waiting on the summer season to start with all that. And you know, now that I checked, that Bleach doesn't come out till the end of the month. That's going to be bifurcated and staggered. So we'll just be doing Tanya and Skeleton Knight, assuming Tanya starts relatively soon. So yeah, the schedule's all borked again. Because Bleach is coming out the end of the month for some reason.
Yeah, Bleach is coming out the end of the month. Freaking JoJo's coming out whatever the hell it feels like. The second core of ReZero's all over the place. Who knows when we're getting the third core of Slime? Just things can't make up their mind and line themselves up, so we can't exactly line them up.
No, I'm sick of playing Jenga. I'm just gonna let the tower fall and just we'll just watch it as the pile of tower on the floor. But either way, this was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was. You know, I think this was as good as it's going to get for relationship stuff and whatnot that people kind of wanted and stuff like that. And I know a lot of people really cling to like romance and stuff like that for what it is, but especially for shonen, and as I've watched more shonen and as I've gotten more into the anime space over the last, like 10 years or so, I don't really expect that out of, and especially after watching more stuff like, like Tomo-chan and My Dress Up Darling and Uzaki-chan and all like the better romance stuff out of the last decade. You know what I mean? If you want romance, there's dedicated romance stuff. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that stuff like that can't happen in a shonen and stuff like that, but from everything I've seen, most shonen authors don't really write that very well. You know what I mean? It's just something that they don't do for various factors. Like I mentioned the Naruto author's story about like Naruto's wedding and stuff like that. It was, it's an endeavor, and there's nothing wrong with that. As a writer, there are going to be gaps in what you're good at. You should just write what you're good at. You know what I mean? There's no shame in just skipping over parts that you're not very good at writing or uncomfortable with writing. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's one of the main things we typically end up critiquing about most shows is when writers try to do stuff outside of their skill set.
Cough, Tokyo Revengers, cough. That guy just if that dude had just written a freaking gang drama, it would have probably been one of the best shows of the last 10 years.
Yeah, if he just dedicated to purely doing gang drama and didn't try to do the whole like pseudo isekai freaking supernatural bullshit that he
time travel
into
all over the wall. He was great at slice of life in the gang drama. Absolutely. All the slice of life stuff, top notch. The gang drama stuff, great. Then you add all the crazy bullshit with Takemichi time traveling. That's what killed that show, honestly, for me. Because the rest of it was totally fine and good. And then it's just like, nah, we're going to do this thing. It's like, damn it. So there's nothing wrong with playing to your strengths and glossing over the stuff that you're not comfortable with, like putting out there, because then it kind of like lowers your work potentially, because then you get people that get all bent out of shape about stuff like this. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But this was fine. I enjoyed it to wrap this up, and we'll check out the Aerie stuff. Maybe we'll check out Vigilantes at some point. I don't think I will ever want to do a reaction series on that one. Maybe just kind of like we watch it and then talk about it, kind of like we're going to do for the last Airbender live action. You guys wanted to see us really shit on something? Here it comes, because we usually don't do that, and this is going to be 95% shitting on something. So that's coming to you guys next week. So to fill the gaps. Yep. So,
Maxima Fikis.
Pretty much. So either way, once again, gotta give them props for wrapping up MHA once again, like we mentioned at the end of the final season there. It was an anime that defined the last decade. You know, it was very good. It was a very, very good shonen. I know a lot of people think it's overrated. It's overhyped, but a lot of things get overrated and hyped. Unjustifiably so, like the Jujutsu Kaisen Maki episode that we've talked about so much recently, that kind of stuff. But MHA has been solid across the board, you know, from season 1. The story was fine, the characters were good, you know, the visuals were there, all of it, sound design. Were there some holes like the Deku's dad stuff and other things that we have talked about over the course of all our and stuff? Sure, but it was still a very, very good show, a fun experience. You know, if you enjoy battle shonens, you'd like this show. You know what I mean? If you're watching this randomly in the future and you just came to this episode for some reason, it's definitely worth the watch. You know what I mean? In my opinion. But once again, you're the driver of your own bus. You have to decide how you spend your time. So if you like battle shonens, you like superpower adjacent stuff, that's what this is. If that's what you're interested in, I'd say give it a shot. You got anything else for this, Age?
I don't think so.
Alrighty then. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond whoever you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was My Hero Academia, the final season, more the special episode. If they do the little Aerie side thing, if that gets dubbed, we'll do it and talk about it. Yeah, maybe we'll do a Vigilantes, like talk about it, we watched it kind of thing in the future. If there is ever a like sequel proper series by the author at some point in the future, we'll check that out too. But for now, give MHA the big thumbs up and round of applause that it deserves, and we'll see you guys next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.